What if I told you that tonight before midnight your breath could determine which version of reality you awaken to tomorrow? That every inhale is a question the universe listens to, and every exhale is your answer. You've been told breathing keeps you alive, but that's only half the story. Breathing is how the universe measures your coherence, how aligned your energy is with the pattern that organizes everything. Tesla knew this. He spoke of frequency, vibration, and energy, not as abstract ideas, but as the living architecture of existence. He understood that consciousness itself could be tuned like an instrument, and the breath was the dial. If you're seeing this, it's not by accident. You've been sensing the repetition, the same lessons, faces, arguments, appearing in slightly different forms as though life were looping on itself. You feel time passing, yet nothing changes. That's the loop. And the test you were meant to pass is hidden inside the one thing you do 23,000 times a day without noticing. Every unconscious breath replays the same program. Every conscious one writes a new line of code in the quantum field. The field isn't judging you, it's mirroring you. It listens to the rhythm of your inhale and the intention behind your exhale, translating that into the geometry of your next experience. Tesla's laboratory experiments weren't just about electricity or wireless energy. They were metaphors in motion, demonstrations that energy obeys attention. He proved that coherent vibration could transmit power across great distances without wires, the same way a coherent mind can influence matter without contact. But coherence demands stillness, a centered field. That's why you were meant to breathe before midnight. Not to fix something, but to synchronize. Midnight isn't just a time on the clock, it's a threshold, a reset point where probabilities reorder themselves based on your state. If you arrive there scattered, you carry chaos into the next cycle. But if you arrive coherent, anchored in breath, aware of the field, you pass the test. This test isn't given by any higher being. It's built into the fabric of creation itself. The question it asks is simple. Can you remain aware as you breathe? Because awareness is the key that unlocks the observer effect. The moment you observe your own breathing, reality pauses, like a film frame suspended before the next scene begins. In that pause, a choice appears. You can either repeat or rewrite. That's the test. Tesla passed again and again, holding his awareness so steady that the invisible obeyed him. He once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." But he might as well have said, "Breathe in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." Most people will scroll past this message before finishing this sentence. That's part of the loop too. Distraction as anesthesia. But you're still here. That means something in you is ready. Tonight, before midnight, you're going to remember what breath really is. The bridge between observer and observed, between thought and manifestation, between chaos and coherence. As you listen to the next words, notice your breath without changing it. Feel it as Tesla felt the hum of energy through copper coils, a living current linking your body to the field itself. You were meant to feel that current before the clock resets. You were meant to breathe consciously before midnight because that's how you pass the test. You wake up, check the time, and already feel late for something you can't quite name. You reach for your device before reaching for your breath. Notifications appear like little bursts of static, pulling your attention into fragments before you've even taken your second inhale. The body moves, but consciousness lags behind like a ghost chasing its own echo. And then, the day begins. Coffee, deadlines, conversations that feel rehearsed, plans that feel recycled. Beneath it all, a quiet suspicion hums. Haven't I lived this exact day before? This is what I call the reality loop. Not a punishment, but a feedback mechanism, a mirror so perfect that most people never realize it's reflecting them. The loop begins in the smallest of places, a single, unnoticed breath. Each shallow inhale tells your nervous system, prepare for threat. Each rushed exhale signals, survival first, awareness later. Over time, this rhythm becomes a language, and that language becomes your life. The body whispers to the field, keep me busy, keep me safe, keep it familiar. The field listens faithfully and rearranges probability to match. That's why change feels impossible. It's not that life refuses to move. It's that your breath keeps asking for sameness. You can see it everywhere. A person tries to leave a toxic relationship, yet finds themselves drawn to the same pattern in a different face. Another works tirelessly for abundance, yet continues breathing scarcity, tight chest, constricted diaphragm, shallow rhythm. Someone meditates for peace but holds their breath at the first sign of discomfort. The loop doesn't care about your words. It reads your state. It's the state that encodes the command. Let's map the mechanism. A trigger appears in email, a tone of voice, a memory. The body tightens, breath shortens. That single shift changes the chemistry of your blood, which alters the messages traveling through your nervous system. In milliseconds, your brain interprets this physiological contraction as meaning, I am unsafe. That meaning determines your next thought, which influences your next choice, which generates evidence confirming your belief. Trigger leads to breath, breath to meaning, meaning to action, action to evidence, and the cycle repeats. What you call reality is this loop replaying in microseconds, each breath sustaining the architecture of the last one. Tesla's life illustrated this dance between chaos and coherence. He worked alone at night, refusing to eat until his experiments felt harmonized. He once described standing before his inventions as though before living beings, machines that responded to his state of focus. When his mind was clear, the coils hummed in perfect symmetry. When his mind wavered, the circuits misfired. He learned through experience what quantum theorists would later describe as the observer effect. Attention organizes energy, but attention distorted by unconscious breath organizes distortion. You've likely noticed this in your own life. When anxiety accelerates your breath, time feels faster, harsher, more fragmented. When you sigh deeply in relief, time softens, expands. The outer world hasn't changed, your internal frequency has. Breath acts like a tuning fork for perception. Unconscious breathing locks you into one narrow frequency, the survival band. Conscious breathing widens your bandwidth, allowing you to perceive what was always there, possibilities hidden in plain sight. But here's the paradox. The loop feels safe even when it's painful. Predictability masquerades as security. That's why awakening doesn't begin with grand visions or cosmic downloads. It begins with discomfort. The moment you sense the repetition and feel the ache of, there must be more, the program starts to crack. The loop resists awareness because awareness dissolves it. The first breath you notice consciously is the first fracture in the cycle. That's why, throughout history, initiates were told to breathe before midnight. Midnight symbolized the moment of reset, the boundary between what has been and what could be. To pass that threshold consciously means refusing to drag the old frequency into the new cycle. Right now, you might think, it can't be that simple. Breathing won't change my life. But remember, your entire experience of life is already built on how you breathe. Every argument, every insight, every memory is filtered through the chemistry of your breathing pattern. You've been living inside the echo chamber of your own exhale. The field doesn't differentiate between oxygen and intention. It responds to the information embedded in the breath itself, the tiny electromagnetic shifts that signal coherence or chaos. This is the perceptual crisis humanity faces. We've mistaken speed for progress, effort for evolution, control for consciousness. The result is collective hyperventilation, an entire species holding its breath, waiting for permission to exhale. And yet, the solution has been with us since our first moment on Earth. The first test you ever passed was taking that inaugural breath. The next test is remembering what that breath meant. So pause. Inhale, slowly, just once. Feel how awareness rides the air. Exhale without rush, noticing the slight pause before the next inhale begins. That pause is not emptiness, it's choice. It's where the loop ends and possibility begins. Every moment you become aware of that gap, you interrupt the program. And when you can stay there awake, breathing, observing, the entire mechanism of the reality loop begins to dissolve. This is where the quantum field starts to listen differently. This is where the test truly begins. Imagine standing in a quiet room, eyes closed, listening for a faint vibration. At first, there's only silence. Then gradually, you hear it, a hum beneath the hum. It isn't outside you, it's within. That is the sound of coherence, the point where your awareness, your breath, and the field around you align. Science calls it resonance. Mystics call it presence. Tesla called it tuning to the universe's frequency. The words differ, but the experience is identical. A moment where you stop being the observer of reality and start being the observer as reality itself. The observer effect, often recited as a physics principle, is not an intellectual idea, it's an emotional phenomenon. Observation alters outcomes because consciousness carries weight. When you truly see something, Your attention collapses potential into form, but attention is never neutral. It's charged by emotion, shaped by breath, filtered through belief. That means you're shaping probabilities every moment, not through force, but through frequency. Every sigh of frustration, every calm inhale, each subtle rhythm of your breath becomes data that the field reads as instruction. Think of your awareness as a lens. When the lens trembles, when you're anxious, judgmental, or divided, light scatters. The picture blurs, and life appears fragmented, unfair, out of focus. When the lens steadies, when breath slows and presence deepens, light converges into coherence, and the image sharpens. Reality hasn't changed. Your capacity to perceive it has. This is what Tesla demonstrated without ever calling it spiritual. He designed oscillators that produced perfectly synchronized vibrations. When they reached resonance, walls trembled, bridges quivered, and hidden structures revealed their weaknesses. He was showing humanity that frequency exposes truth. When your inner vibration becomes coherent, your life structures, relationships, habits, thoughts begin to tremble too, revealing what's real and what can no longer stand. The quantum field is not a distant concept. It's the unseen medium through which your inner state ripples outward. Every coherent emotion sends a pattern through that medium, like waves across water. Gratitude, compassion, peace. These are not sentiments but frequencies with measurable geometry. Chaos, resentment, fear, different geometries, equally real, equally creative. The field doesn't decide what's right or wrong. It mirrors whatever geometry you emit most consistently. That's why transformation rarely comes from effort alone. It comes from a shift in coherence. Coherence isn't perfection. It's agreement between your breath, your body, and your awareness. When you breathe in alignment with your intention, your heart and brain synchronize, producing what researchers call heart-brain coherence. The ancients described it differently. They said, the soul and mind begin to speak the same language, and in that alignment, probability rearranges. You've felt this, even if you couldn't name it. That moment when you stop trying so hard and suddenly everything flows, emails return, ideas click, timing becomes effortless. You've tuned yourself to the frequency of allowance, the same current that Tesla courted when he said, "My brain is only a receiver." In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I'm white. When you breathe consciously, you're not manufacturing calm, you're establishing connection with that core. The breath is the antenna, drawing in information from the quantum field. You become the receiver Tesla described, translating pure potential into usable insight. That's why great ideas often arrive in stillness, in showers, in nature, or just before sleep, because your breath finally quiets the static long enough for signal to emerge. And yet, coherence requires humility. You cannot command the field with ego. The observer effect works not because you control outcomes, but because you harmonize with the frequency of truth. Control constricts. Harmony expands. Tesla's machines operated only when they vibrated in tune with natural laws. Your consciousness does too. When you fight life, when you grip outcomes, you create interference. The field reflects interference with chaos, not as punishment, but as physics. But the moment you exhale fully, when you release expectation, the pattern reorganizes. So what then is the test you're meant to pass before midnight? It's not moral, not mystical. It's energetic. Can you hold coherence when uncertainty surrounds you? Can you breathe when you don't yet know how the story ends? That single act collapses one reality and births another. Because coherence is contagious the moment you sustain it, the field responds with synchronicities that seem miraculous. They're not miracles. They're reflections of alignment. You are the experiment Tesla began but never finished, the union of science and spirit, electricity and empathy. Your nervous system is a living coil. Your thoughts are currents. Your breath is voltage. The observer effect is not an abstraction. It's your lived experience of being the bridge between possibility and manifestation. When you realize that every breath either strengthens or distorts that bridge, you begin to live deliberately, as a conscious participant in the grand circuitry of creation. Long before laboratories and oscillators, the ancients understood that breath was the meeting point between heaven and earth. In the temples of Egypt, initiates were taught that each inhalation drew in the ka, the vital essence of the gods, and each exhalation released the ba, the soul's intention, returning to the cosmos. To breathe was to converse with the divine. They built their rituals around that rhythm. Inhale to receive life, exhale to give it form. The Great Pyramid itself was not merely a tomb but a resonant chamber, a vast lung of stone. When priests chanted within its corridors, their voices vibrated the air in patterns meant to mirror the heartbeat of creation. They believed that when sound, breath, and intention synchronized, the barrier between matter and spirit dissolved. Centuries later, the Buddha would sit beneath the Bodhi tree and rediscover the same principle through simplicity rather than architecture. His teaching of ānāpānasati, mindfulness of breathing, was the middle way in motion. To follow the breath was to walk the bridge between body and awareness, between form and emptiness. He observed that thoughts behaved like clouds passing across a boundless sky. The clouds moved, but the sky remained. Awareness was that sky. Breath was the wind that allowed clouds to drift without storm. These traditions, though separated by continents, were describing the same mechanism Tesla would later demonstrate with coils and circuits. Breath organizes energy. It's the ancient technology of coherence. Every inhale lifts you toward potential. Every exhale grounds potential into form. In Kabbalistic mysticism, this process was known as Ruach Elohim, the breath of God hovering over the waters of creation. The Hebrew word neshama, breath, spirit, soul, was used interchangeably, for they were one. To inhale was to receive divine intelligence. To exhale was to express it. When the Egyptians spoke of ma'at, they weren't referring only to moral order, but to vibrational balance. The feather of ma'at symbolized a frequency so precise that even a heart had to match it to cross into eternity. The test of the soul wasn't judged by deeds alone, but by resonance. Could your heart's vibration align with truth's feather-light frequency? In today's language, that means coherence. A heart weighed down by chaos, resentment, or guilt could not rise to the next octave of existence. Only one tuned to harmony could pass through the threshold. Tesla's test before midnight echoes this timeless right. Midnight is the weighing hour, the point where frequencies shift and truth reveals its density. When you breathe consciously before that moment, you're aligning your heart's field with coherence, ensuring it can rise when cycles reset. The ancients visualized this as crossing the river of stars, the Milky Way as a cosmic bridge between worlds. Breath was the ferry, awareness was the oar. Without it, one drifted aimlessly in lower currents of repetition. Consider the image of sky and clouds again. The sky, your awareness, is infinite, unchanging. The clouds, your thoughts, emotions, stories come and go, shaped by unseen winds. Breath is that wind. The way you breathe determines how the clouds move. A turbulent breath creates storms. A steady one reveals blue. Ancient yogis described this relationship through the word prana, life force. They said prana rides on the breath like a bird on wind. Where breath flows smoothly, prana flows freely, and consciousness expands. Where breath constricts, prana stagnates, and consciousness contracts. When Tesla tuned his devices, he was doing what priests and yogis had done for millennia, seeking the perfect resonance between heaven's frequency and earth's form. His experiments with wireless energy mirrored the temple chants that carried sound through limestone halls. Both sought the same outcome: transmission without loss, power without interference. The ancients achieved it through alignment of breath and intention, Tesla through alignment of frequency and design. If you listen carefully, you can still hear their shared message echoing across centuries. Coherence is communion. When breath, thought, and feeling move in harmony, you become a living temple. The architecture of stone becomes unnecessary because your body itself turns into the chamber of resonance. Every cell vibrates with the same intelligence that turns galaxies. The tree of life, another Kabbalistic symbol, represents this vertical alignment. Its roots reach into Earth's density. Its branches extend into divine light. Breath is the sap that circulates between them, carrying awareness up and embodiment down. This is why ancient teachings always spoke of the bridge, the crossing, the threshold. Whether it was Ma'at's feather, Buddha's wind of mindfulness, or the Hebrew breath of creation, they all pointed toward the same realization. The power that shapes worlds moves through your lungs each moment, and the test then and now is whether you can stay aware enough to direct it with love instead of fear. When you breathe before midnight, you are not performing a ritual for some distant deity. You are reenacting the oldest ceremony of all, the ceremony of remembering that you are both the sky and the wind, both the bridge and the traveler. Tesla demonstrated it with machines of copper and light. The ancients built monuments to embody it. You, through breath, become both. Now we move from theory to experience. Close your eyes for a moment, not to escape the world, but to enter the field that gives rise to it. You don't need incense or music. You only need the instrument you've always carried, your breath. The exercise I'm about to guide you through is not mystical. It's mechanical in the most sacred sense. It's how consciousness recalibrates itself. Please remember, this is for education and awareness only, not for any medical treatment or condition. If at any time you feel lightheaded or uncomfortable, return to normal breathing and simply rest in awareness. Begin by noticing your breath as it already is. No judgment, just observation. Feel the air touch the inside of your nostrils as it enters. Notice its temperature. Is it cool? Warm? Observe the slight lift of your chest, the expansion of your belly. The first stage is awareness waking up to what has been happening unconsciously 23,000 times a day. Now, inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold gently, not as strain but as stillness for a count of 2. Feel that pause like a bridge between worlds. Then exhale through the mouth for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Allow the sound to be audible, soft, steady. This is the observer's breath, a simple pattern Tesla would have called coherent oscillation, shorter charge, longer discharge, rhythm balanced by intention. Do this for 3 cycles, each one slower than the last. As you settle into this rhythm, imagine your breath not as air, but as light. Each inhale draws coherent energy through the crown of your head into the heart. Each exhale radiates it outward through the body, then beyond the skin into the invisible field surrounding you. That field extends several feet in every direction, subtle but alive. With every exhale, it becomes smoother, more luminous, like ripples calming on a once disturbed lake. This is not visualization for fantasy. It's a sensory metaphor. Your nervous system feels coherence before your mind interprets it. Now bring attention to the gap between breaths. After each exhale, before the next inhale begins, linger in that silence. It's brief, maybe half a second, but within it, everything stops. The heart pauses between beats. The mind holds no story. You are not breathing. Breath is breathing you. That gap is what ancient Egyptians called the silence of Ra, what modern science might call zero-point equilibrium. Stay there for as long as feels natural, then let the next inhale arrive on its own. You may notice a gentle warmth behind your sternum, or a pulsing at your fingertips. That's coherence translating into sensation. Let it be. With every breath, whisper inwardly. Observe. On the inhale, receive. On the exhale, release. In the gap, remember. This triad, observe, receive, release, forms the complete circuit of conscious breathing. It anchors awareness, harmonizes emotion, and re-educates the nervous system to interpret stillness as safety rather than threat. If emotion surfaces, sadness, tension, fatigue, don't analyze it. Let the breath move through it like wind through tall grass. What releases is not weakness but stored charge, information the body no longer needs to hold. Tesla wrote of electrical discharge as purification, the moment when a circuit releases excess energy to restore balance. You're doing the same with breath. To integrate this into daily life, practice microbreaths. Before you open an email, inhale consciously once. Before replying in conflict, find the gap between words. When standing in line, breathe through the soles of your feet as if the earth itself were exhaling through you. These micro-protocols rewire your timeline not by effort, but by frequency. Each small act interrupts the autopilot of survival and replaces it with awareness. Over time, you'll notice external events synchronizing in subtle ways, coincidences aligning, conversations flowing, intuition sharpening. That's coherence rippling outward. As you continue, imagine your body as a temple of oscillating light. The spine is the central coil. The heart is the transformer. Breath is current, moving through the system. With each inhale, you draw the charge. With each exhale, you distribute it evenly. If you listen closely, there's a moment when the whole body hums a gentle internal resonance. That hum is your personal frequency, finding symmetry with the field. Tesla lived in pursuit of that sensation. The ancients prayed to it. You can feel it now. End this practice by placing a hand over your heart and one over your abdomen. Whisper softly, I am here. Inhale coherence. Exhale gratitude. The test was never about perfection. It was about remembering presence under pressure. Tonight, before midnight, return to this rhythm. 3 rounds of 4-2-6 breathing. Between each round, pause in the gap. Feel how awareness stretches wider, how silence grows denser, how reality itself begins to listen. You'll know you've passed when the breath breathes itself and the stillness feels like home. Up until now, your life has likely felt like a sequence of reactions. Something happens, you respond. You think you're choosing, but in truth, the choice was encoded in your state before the event even arrived. That's the secret of the loop. It doesn't begin with action. It begins with breath. Your breathing pattern dictates your perception. Your perception shapes your decisions, and your decisions reinforce your identity. Tesla would have called it a closed-circuit energy, recirculating endlessly until an external impulse alters its phase. Conscious breath is that impulse. It interrupts the current and introduces a new frequency. That's when you shift from victim to creator. The moment awareness meets breath, the circuit breaks, and a new possibility appears. You start to realize that the external world isn't testing you, it's translating you. When you enter coherence, life mirrors it. When you breathe in panic, the field organizes itself around fear. That's not punishment, it's precision. The field is neutral. It reflects the signal you send. So when you ask, why does this keep happening to me? The answer is almost always, because the vibration has not changed. The breath is both question and reply. To live as a conscious creator means reprogramming this loop through deliberate presence. Tesla demonstrated this on an electrical scale. He would sit for hours in silence, visualizing his machines working flawlessly before building a single prototype. When he finally touched the material components, they operated perfectly because coherence had already been established in the field. What if you could apply the same principle to your relationships, your finances, and your leadership? Let's explore 3 scenes where the shift from reaction to creation becomes tangible. Scene 1. Money. You're facing a financial challenge, a bill, a project that failed, a door that closed. The old loop tightens your chest. Breath becomes shallow. You panic, strategize, grasp. This signal tells the field. Scarcity. The field responds by amplifying scarcity, missed calls, delayed payments, constricted flow. The creator, however, pauses. Before taking any action, they breathe deliberately, letting the exhale become longer than the inhale. In that gap, panic dissolves, space returns. Then the creative impulse surfaces, not born of fear, but clarity. You see a solution that wasn't visible before, a conversation, a collaboration, an intuitive move. The energy of money begins to flow toward coherence because you've become coherent. You stop chasing prosperity and start breathing it into form. Scene 2. Relationship. A partner, friend, or colleague triggers you with words that sting. The loop reacts. Defense, withdrawal, accusation. The heart contracts. The field closes. Tesla would call this interference a disruption in resonance between 2 frequencies. The breath, however, can retune the instrument. Before responding, inhale into the heart. Feel the breath expand the space around your emotion. Don't suppress the feeling. Witness it. The observer within you doesn't need to be right. It needs to remain real. From this place, your response changes. Words soften. You speak from awareness instead of wound. The other person senses the shift, even if they can't name it. Conflict dissolves because coherence has returned to the conversation. Scene 3. Leadership. You're guiding others, a team, a family, a vision, and chaos strikes. Plans collapse, pressure mounts. People look to you for answers. The loop's instinct is to control, to fix. But leadership from control creates resistance. Leadership from coherence creates alignment. Pause. Feel your feet on the ground. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the heart. In that moment, you become the still point Tesla described, the unmoving center of the field. People feel it immediately. Your presence steadies their nervous systems. Solutions arise organically, not from panic, but from synchronization. This is leadership through frequency, not force. In each scene, the same pattern emerges. State precedes story. Breath precedes destiny. When you control nothing but coherence, the universe handles coordination. The test before midnight is the same in every area of life. Will you act from fear or breathe from knowing? Midnight represents the 0 point where potential resets. Pass the test, and you align with creation itself. Fail it, and the loop continues not as punishment, but as invitation. Tesla once remarked, "If your hate could be turned into electricity, it would light up the whole world." He meant that emotional energy is power unrefined yet potent. When transmuted through breath and awareness, even your most painful emotions become usable current. Anger becomes clarity, grief becomes compassion, fear becomes alertness. Breath is the alchemy that converts raw voltage into illumination. Remember this truth. Your external life is a projection of internal coherence. When the breath stabilizes, the story simplifies. You no longer chase outcomes, you embody them. Relationships heal because your field stops broadcasting chaos. Money flows because your vibration no longer repels it. Leadership elevates because presence replaces pressure. You cease being an actor in a repeating scene and become the author adjusting the script in real time. Passing the test isn't about perfection, it's about remembering. Remembering that the power you sought outside the machine, the plan, the other person was always the breath waiting to be noticed. Before midnight, take one deliberate inhale and know. With this breath, the circuit resets. You are not trapped in the loop. You are the current that writes it. When you finally step outside the loop, something subtle yet immense happens. You begin to sense the dignity in existence itself. Not the grandeur of achievement, but the quiet elegance of simply being aware. You understand why Tesla could stand in an empty laboratory, surrounded by silence and light, and feel utterly complete. He wasn't worshipping his inventions. He was listening to the hum beneath creation, the same hum that lives in your pulse. Once you hear it, you can never return fully to the old rhythm. Stillness, then, is not withdrawal. It is participation at a higher octave. It's the stillness of a seed before germination, of a sunrise before it breaks, of a mind before it chooses thought. In that stillness, you feel belonging, not the belonging that depends on others approving you, but the belonging that comes from realizing you are woven from the same thread as stars and soil. Each breath reminds you, I am part of this. I was never separate. Modern life trains us to equate movement with meaning, but the ancients and Tesla knew the opposite. They saw that power emerges from rest, clarity from silence, coherence from pause. The universe itself expands and contracts in great breaths. Creation, dissolution, creation, again. To breathe consciously is to join that cosmic rhythm, to recognize that your personal story is not a solitary script but a paragraph in a vast symphony of awareness. When you sit in stillness long enough, you start seeing art everywhere. The shadow of leaves on a wall becomes choreography. The hum of traffic turns into a mantra. You notice that the world has been creating with you all along, waiting for you to slow enough to notice its response. That noticing, pure, undistracted observation is what turns ordinary perception into sacred dialogue. Stillness is not the absence of activity, it's the artistry of awareness revealing itself through form. This understanding brings humility. You stop trying to dominate reality and start participating in its unfolding. You see that every person you meet is fighting their own loop, breathing unconsciously through inherited patterns, trying to remember who they are. Compassion becomes natural, not as virtue but as physics. The coherent field you cultivate through breath influences others without a word. You walk into a room, and people soften. You speak fewer sentences, and they carry more meaning. This is stillness as public art, the quiet revolution of coherence made visible through human presence. And from this awareness arises a new form of agency, not the grasping kind that seeks control, but the anchored kind that embodies trust. You realize you no longer need to manipulate outcomes because you are tuned to the intelligence that orchestrates them. This doesn't make you passive, it makes you precise. Every action emerges from deep alignment, like Tesla switching on a perfectly tuned coil, knowing it will hum with exactly the right frequency. Your words, gestures, and choices become calibrated instruments of coherence. To live this way is to practice reverence not for authority, but for awareness itself. Each breath becomes a prayer without language, each pause a moment of reattunement to the field. You begin to sense that your purpose was never something to find, but something to remember. It's not a task, it's a frequency. It vibrates beneath every experience you've ever had, waiting for coherence to reveal it. And when you remember, you understand that even your suffering was part of the design, an invitation to notice the gap. Pain was the pressure that cracked open the shell of automatic living. The loop wasn't punishment, it was the teacher. Every storm that once threatened to drown you was training you to breathe underwater, to find stillness in turbulence, to recognize that peace is not the absence of chaos but the awareness within it. That awareness is what makes you human in the truest sense. Machines can calculate, animals can react, but only humans can witness. Only you can hold experience and say, I see this, and I choose coherence. That choice is the pivot of evolution. It's how consciousness learns to see itself through form. Tesla understood this when he said, "My brain is only a receiver." He didn't mean to diminish the mind's role. He meant to liberate it. The receiver doesn't create the signal, it translates it. Likewise, you're not here to control reality, you're here to translate infinite possibility into tangible beauty through the frequency of your breath. So when you look at the world, the chaos, the division, the noise, don't despair. It's the same pattern seeking balance, the same field waiting for coherence. Stillness, practiced by enough hearts, reorganizes even the largest systems. When you breathe consciously, you're contributing to that balance, not metaphorically, but energetically. Each coherent breath is an act of restoration, a quiet affirmation that awareness is enough. You are not late to your destiny. You have not failed the test. Every inhale is a new beginning. Every exhale, a letting go of timelines that never belonged to you. Breathe with dignity. Walk with presence. Live as a reminder that stillness itself is creation in motion. Before this night ends, before midnight arrives, let's complete the circle together. You've understood the mechanism, the field, the breath, the stillness. Now it's time to encode it into your lived frequency. This is not just an ending, it's a calibration, a sacred pause before the next cycle begins. Sit comfortably, wherever you are. Let your spine be upright but soft, as if a gentle thread of light lifts the crown of your head. Close your eyes if you wish. Bring your attention to the air entering your nostrils, the faint sound it makes, the coolness against your skin. Feel your chest rise. Feel your shoulders drop. This is the point where Tesla met the field, at the threshold between awareness and energy. Take a slow, deliberate inhale through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold briefly at the top. Feel your entire body suspended in the quiet between worlds. Then exhale slowly through the mouth for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause again. That pause is the bridge. It's where creation listens. We'll do this together for 3 coherent breaths, the same triad Tesla used when aligning his resonance coils. Each breath sends a signal, not to some distant heaven, but to the very geometry of space around you. With each inhale, imagine receiving energy from the core of the universe. With each exhale, imagine transmitting harmony back into the field. First breath. Inhale to receive awareness. Hold it softly. Feel the current vibrate. Exhale. Release tension, expectation, memory. Notice how the field softens around you. Second breath. Inhale to receive coherence. Let the air move deeper into the belly. Hold gently, sensing warmth in the heart. Exhale. Send calm through your hands, your voice, your timeline. The world feels it, even if unseen. Third breath. Inhale to receive remembrance. The knowing that you were never separate. Hold in gratitude. Exhale. Release every old pattern, every unconscious loop, every breath you took in survival. Let the energy return to neutrality. Now, in the quiet after that final exhale, choose one word, your frequency for the next cycle. It could be peace, clarity, courage, faith, stillness, love. Don't think, let the word rise from the same silence that creates stars. When it comes, whisper it aloud. Then say the phrase, I choose to, your word, as the observer. Feel that declaration resonate through your chest, through your field, through the invisible circuitry of existence. This isn't affirmation, it's alignment. The field has received the signal. You've passed the test. Tonight, before midnight, you will breathe consciously once more. You'll step into the next cycle not as a reactor but as a transmitter of coherence. The universe doesn't require effort from you, only awareness. Breath by breath, you're weaving a new pattern into the quantum fabric. If these words have reached something in you, stay connected to this frequency. Subscribe not just to a channel, but to this state of coherence. Each time you return, you'll strengthen the signal. Share this with someone who's ready to remember that breath is not survival, it's communication with the field. And now, take one final breath, your own Tesla coil of consciousness, drawing energy from infinite stillness, exhaling it into the world as peace. Feel the pulse of your heartbeat synchronizing with the rhythm of everything. You are the bridge between silence and sound, between chaos and coherence, between what was and what will be. Midnight is near, but this time, you won't meet it as the same person. You'll meet it as awareness itself, calm, luminous, and whole. The test was never about time, it was about presence. And you, right now, are passing it with every conscious breath. So breathe. Not to survive, but to transmit. Not to escape, but to embody. Not to seek, but to remember. The field is listening. You are the signal, and the world is ready for your coherence.